Parallel frequencies with just Blane and Coco and the freaks out there. What's up, freaks? What's up, Coco?
Hi. What's up?
You never know what to think when we start, do you? You're just like, I'm here.
I'm like, here we go.
I'm along
got my
for the
coffee,
ride.
got my
Yeah, we were just talking. Your birthday's coming up next week, and I threw the idea out there. We should do a murder mystery, like a whodunit style.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Have you done that?
I would absolutely do that. Yeah, I did something like that. Not sure how well it went, but when I turned 14, and I've told you guys on the pod before, freaks will know from other episodes how into X-Files I was. Not common for a 14-year-old girl, but I was really into it. So my parents threw me an X-Files themed birthday party with a sleepover. And then they did this whole murder mystery thing. My dad dressed up like the cigarette smoking man, trench coat, cigarette. So there was me, thrilled, like, we're gonna find aliens. And my six other friends sitting on the couch like, what is happening?
Your dad's over there just chain smoking all night.
Here's what we're gonna do. You know, I had a X-Files Mulder and Scully birthday cake, and we played Murder in the Dark, and it ended up being a blast. They had a great time. It was just not a typical.
Well, I think we should do it again this year for your birthday, and you'd actually have friends who knew what the hell was going on. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, might even dress up.
Yeah,
in character. Oh, that would be a blast. That would be so my thing.
I guarantee you, your dad would still do the smoking man for us. That's
absolutely.
I could see him being a good dungeon master, like a good D&D dungeon master.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If he'd gotten into that, he would be.
Never too late. It's never too late. You know what's also never too late is to go and vote on IMDb. Now, I'm about to get a little bit upset because today is Tube Tuesday, and we're going to talk about Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Hang tight. I guarantee you we'll get to it. This ties into it, though, because there have been people who have, first of all, they got the time to do this, but they've been out there and been review bombing IMDb episodes of Breaking Bad and Night of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 5. Because here's the thing. Breaking Bad's episode, Ozymandias, which was one of the best episodes of TV ever, had a 10.0 on IMDb. Now, or a 9.9, it was whatever, the highest rated episode of TV ever. Now, Night of the Seven Kingdoms comes along, and episode 5 challenges Breaking Bad's position. Now, here's where I get a little upset, because there's people out there who went from both fan bases and gave the other ones 1 stars so that it would drive them down in ratings. Because Breaking Bad fans think that's the best episode ever. Night of the Seven Kingdoms fans think that's the best episode of TV ever. Listen here, okay? Coco, I have thought long and hard about this. I got 5 things I came up with that would be a better use of your time than tanking IMDb ratings.
Right?
All right?
Okay.
Number 1, actually watch the movie or the show you're mad about. You gave it 1 star. You gave it 0 minutes of your life. So if you're going to be furious, at least be informed. Number 2, start your own movie or TV show review channel. If you feel that strongly, congratulations, you've got some content. Now grab your phone, turn on the ring light, and call it Cinema Courtroom with Chad. I don't care, okay? Number 3, learn how movies actually get made. You hated the ending? Cool. Did you know there were 200 plus crew members that worked on it? Somebody had to spend 14 hours a day moving the lights around. A stunt coordinator probably bruised a rib for your entertainment, okay? Number 4, rewatch a show because you actually love it. Imagine that radical concept. Spend the energy celebrating something instead of sabotaging it. You don't have to sabotage another show. You can enjoy all of them. And number 5, most importantly, for the people out there who are review bombing on IMDb, touch grass. Okay? Go, go and literally touch some grass. There's sunlight outside. It's free. No subscription tier. No Rotten Tomato score. No review bombing. No IMDb. Do it. That's my take on that, Coco, because I can't stand when you got
100%.
And thank you for letting me rant there, but I really can't stand when you got two incredible pieces of artwork, and that's what I'm going to call it, with Ozymandias, and I'm probably saying that wrong, but that's my accent coming out. My tongue doesn't work in all the kind of ways, but Ozymandias with Breaking Bad was an incredible episode of television, just like Night of the Seven Kingdoms, episode 5 and 4 and 6. Tube Tuesday, Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm gonna have to catch my breath here and let you kick off what we're getting into and your top level feelings about Night of the Seven Kingdoms in the Game of Thrones universe. So go ahead, Coco, and let me get my breath, okay?
Actually, you know, as you're pointing this out, and I didn't know anything about this battle on IMDb, and the voting is new to me too, that we have so much power in one aspect of what scores somebody gets. But it's interesting as you're bringing this up, because it kind of invokes this discussion topic of the old systems versus the new, right? Like patriarchal systems that we have all known about for centuries upon centuries is kind of that competitive spirit, right? Nothing wrong with competitive spirit. We all like sports and rooting for our team and the gold medals and the silver medals and the bronze medals being passed out of the Olympics. We love it, but there is also an element to which that becomes so unnecessarily toxic, and we don't need to get there. Like, why can't we appreciate, which I would have, both of those episodes, being that one deserves to be in the same space and mentioned in the same breath as the other? Yeah. Why not that be okay, right? And I think Game of Thrones, as I sat and thought about Seven Kingdoms, Night of the Seven Kingdoms we're going to talk about today, I thought about the whole Game of Thrones universe. I thought about all the stories, the original series. And I thought, what is the thing that keeps the central theme that keeps us coming back and considering these, this universe, this show? And to me, it's kingmaking. I keep going back to the thought of what makes a king? What makes a sovereign? What makes a ruler? Why do we do it the way we do it? Because even in Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is primarily around this night, we're still around the topic of how does someone become special or influential in society? Because we often put nobility or like the family they were born into, the wealth that they were born into, the titles that they were born into on this pedestal. And I think the stories of Westeros, all of them, kind of keep coming back to this, but what actually makes a king? Yeah. It's incredible that they've got this whole universe in Westeros. And that is the main through line, if you want to call it that. And the fact that we get to hear about these families and we're seeing the same families in power really reflects your perspective there, because it is the Targaryens, and you hear all these other names that we know at this point if you've watched Game of Thrones. And this one, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, sure, we're back in Westeros, but it's not the dragon burn everything Westeros. I don't even think they have dragons at this point in Game of Thrones time. I think it's a dragonless Targaryen family at that point, because this is set 200 years before the other Game of Thrones stuff. So yeah, honestly too, this is the most human version of the universe that we've ever gotten. It's really not it's most
not
historically accurate. If you think
it's
about
not like this every week. It's not the who's on the throne this week. Sure, we've got that power struggle and all that going on, but it's not fighting for that, the Iron Throne every single week. This one is kind of, it's like the writers, producers said, what if we just follow two dudes and a horse? And it works. It's a little slow. It's a little slow out of the gate.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
first 2 episodes, and I said that right at the beginning. I was like, all I've seen is the first 2 episodes, I think, and I was like, I think I'm spending a lot of time trying to figure out who's who
yeah,
and what's what, and yeah, I come to find out because I had to really kind of dig in. It says about 100 years before the Game of Thrones series, the original series, but it's actually more like 89 years technically, because I was starting to kind of go, well, wait a minute. If they have a mention of Aemon Targaryen
yeah,
in this series, and he was an old man dying in Game of Thrones at Castle Black, people might remember Sam, and he was the maester at Castle Black. Really sweet guy. We all liked him. And he gives mention to Egg, his younger brother. And so I was kind of confused because I'm like, 100 years? How old was that man when he died?
yeah.
If he's not a newborn baby in this series, and he's actually not in the actual, he doesn't have a character that plays him because he's at the Citadel being trained to be a maester. Yep. So at this point, he's probably an adult or a young adult, maybe. So I'm like, it couldn't have been 100 years. Otherwise, how long do these people live in this series? This is kind of otherworldly, maybe. But
well,
yeah,
if you like the character, they don't live very long. I can tell you that. They get rid of them. They kill them off.
He would have been the longest lasting character probably in all of the Westeros Game of Thrones universe, right?
He had to have just hid low. I don't know. But let's talk about Dunk. Because Sir Duncan the Tall, Dunk, he's big, earnest, not exactly a political mastermind. The man has the energy of somebody who wandered into Destiny because he was too polite to just leave. Like, it's kind of like he just kind of inserts himself and he can't get out. He's like a sore thumb. He sticks out. He's giant. Then you got Egg, this shaved head kid who, spoiler alert, casually turns out to be Aegon Targaryen, that we find out. You know, future king, no big deal. That's in stone. That's he will become the king.
Yeah. I love the fortune teller part where she's like, you will become king someday, but I think, what does she say? Everyone will celebrate your death.
Your death, yeah. So Egg is going to turn into a ruthless ruler at some point, somehow. And that's what's even more crazy here. And the dynamic between Egg and Dunk, chef's kiss right there.
I know.
It's a mentor and a student. It's, you don't know who I am.
Sweet, but a little bit playful, a little teasing, a little tough at times.
Yeah, but you look at the two characters and the dynamic, and it's you don't know who I am meets you don't know who you could be.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. I didn't really catch on to Egg being Targaryen until that episode 3. And that's when it got me, and I raised up. I'm like, all right, Game of Thrones is here. Let's go. Let's go. It was a slow build, but it was the human nature of Westeros. And we're getting to learn about Dunk and all this stuff. He's going to the Ashford, what is it, the jousting matches and all this. And sure, it's smaller. The stakes feel a lot smaller, but that makes it feel bigger. And then you got this kid who I'm looking at and I'm thinking, oh, he's a peasant. He's sick. He's got some sort of something. His head shaved. They call him Egg because of his head.
Did you ask yourself like I did? And this was a passing, like it couldn't be, like logically, but I had this passing moment where I thought, is this supposed to be Viserys and his story? Like that the boy was him? The bald head? I don't know. I just thought maybe there was a connection there, but turns out.
I thought about it real brief. And then I thought about the time frame and I was like, oh, that can't work. But yeah.
Right.
But that was
good. It wasn't just me then.
No, it did. It did. But when he said that in episode 3 and they saved Dunk from getting basically killed, they would have killed him right there. And he saved him. And that's when you find out that he shaves his head because he doesn't want to look like his brother. And I was like, holy shit, that's a Game of Thrones moment. And it was one that hit really, really hard without all the violence, which was crazy for once. What'd you think about that? What'd you think about that the reveal in the middle of the season there?
I think that's when it came back to me that I thought, oh, egg. Oh, now I'm piecing together this whole Targaryen family tree. But like I said previously, past episodes when we talked about it, I was like Googling Targaryen family tree. Where does this fit in? I need to know like who's descended from who and where we end up with Daenerys and Viserion. Is that her brother's name?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to start getting all these Targaryen names confused.
I know.
Just real quick here. But yeah, then it started to be this, this dynamic that I'm talking about here, where it's like, how do you know when somebody's a nobody and when they are important?
Yeah.
Did Egg, become important because he's revealed as a prince, or are we really talking about how much influence someone ordinary can have, like Dunk, because he's an honorable person? And I think, as I started really sitting down with these thoughts about what does this mean and what would this be telling us as an audience? What would this be revealing to us? And it's interesting to think about the original Game of Thrones and how Jon Snow ended up being a prince, a Targaryen, right? In that he was a bastard and he was raised as well as you could expect a bastard in Westeros to be raised, I guess, not super important, kind of pushed off to the side, loved to some extent by his father, who he thought was his father, which is good for him.
Yeah.
But there's this Stark family. You have, Jon Snow coming in from and being raised by the Stark family, and the influence that had on him in becoming an honorable person. That, like, it's even mentioned in the last episode in The Night of Seven Kingdoms, where he's like, some say that madness is born in the womb. But I wonder if Dunk is wondering if that's true, and that maybe Egg has a chance of being an honorable prince, someday king, because of the way he can influence him, of the raising of him differently than being a prince in a castle and part of this Targaryen name. That's kind of where my thoughts are with that.
What's wild too is to think about the fact now that we know King Aegon at some point is going to reign terror on the Seven Kingdoms, the Nine Kingdoms, as Egg gives us Westeros historians a nice little history lesson. Yeah,
wait, what's happening right now?
But that's very accurate, and that just shows you how smart he actually is. He already knows about all the history. He knows all this stuff, and he's that young. But to go from that kid who is going to be, like I said, a ruthless king, but look who he's squire for. That means he's going to learn something along the way that's going to make him. So is Dunk going to be the reason that he is awful at some point? Maybe something happens to Dunk. Maybe, I don't know. I could see that happening, but we got to find that out now, and I'm ready to find out that story going forward.
Yes. How does one become the other?
Yeah.
And Egg in this series at this point in time really represents this innocence, because Westeros is a cruel and brutal place. We've seen that. It showed in the flashbacks of Dunk's life and where he started out at Flea Bottom, King's Landing. It's not an easy place to live. And at one point, it kind of goes back to Daenerys Targaryen wanting to come to Westeros and be queen, as she's saying, I want to break the wheel. It's just, a rotating wheel of who's on top at whatever given time in history, but nothing ever seems to change. This is why I'm really bothered by the way that original series ended, because I felt like she was supposed to be the one to break that cycle and do something different for the people. To be like, I've got to come in and do it differently than my ancestors did it. If I'm going to claim sovereignty and say my family's been royalty here in Westeros for however long back, but I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do it differently. That's what I would have liked to have seen. We could rewrite everything to come in and say, we can be honorable. We can raise people up. We can look at the lower classes or whoever's at the bottom of the totem pole, can see them as potentially incredible and unique and
Yeah.
have contributions, just like Dunk ends up being and giving. So I think Egg kind of represents that youthful, hopeful archetype. And he
Yeah.
even says something like, "Hope belongs to all who invoke it," is one of my favorite quotes in this
Yeah.
series.
Now, but I will say that Egg he played all that innocence and had that feeling until he revealed he was Targaryen. I think that's when, to me, I'm like, oh, the innocence is gone. He knew what
Yeah.
he was doing. He's not only that, but he is a Targaryen. And you know what? I appreciate this. We already mentioned there's no dragons in this, and I appreciate that they didn't shove the dragons down our throat for the spectacle. We've got House of Dragons for that. We didn't need it here. This one shows us that the Targaryens are there. The tension is there. The story isn't really obsessed with the mythology of the dragons, but it's showing still how powerful they are. And I think it's more grounded toward the source material from George R.R. Martin, who, once again, fuck him, because he ain't going to finish that book. But this is still based off of stuff that he did. But maybe that's the evolution of the universe. They've done the spectacle. Now they're exploring more of the soul, the story. What do you think about that?
The philosophy
Yeah.
is yeah.
We even heard more about the religion stuff in this one. To me, they were always doing more stuff to the gods, and even the battle of the seven or whatever, everything was left up to the gods, and it wasn't like they were saying it in a way that metaphorically the way they said it in here was, to me, the first time we've really seen religion of some kind this strong in a Game of Thrones universe. So, did you notice that too?
Yeah, and I always find that that part of it to be really interesting, that it kind of reflects the change of paganism to Christianity in our history, and where this Game of Thrones is inspired by the War of Roses and that time period in our own history in Northern Europe. But I find that part really interesting because you have the old gods and the new, right? In Westeros, there was the old gods, which were essentially the trees, the gods wood, and they go into it a lot in the books, which I really loved. I loved the idea of like even the respect and reverence for those that worship the old gods. So they would allow people to, we have a god's wood if you need to go and worship there instead of at the church or at the whatever they called it, I can't remember, but where the seven. And I liked how it showed that when they were knighting the friend of Dunk's, and they were kind of invoking the power of this, and of the father, and I loved when they said the mother who protects the innocence of women and children.
Yep.
And the innocent, like that's the vows they take as a knight, even to have like this goddess figure to be invoked in that it's not all masculine, or to be like, we just want strength and war and weapons, and may your weapons be strong and your muscles be mighty. I don't know, whatever they might say. But that they were like, that you're also taking an oath for the mother who protects the innocent. And you see Dunk is a very honorable knight who takes that oath very seriously when he gives his speech. And he says, we made this vow. Who's going to fight with me?
Yep.
And I love that. I love that integration. And I love that for whatever reason, maybe they're a little bit more advanced than we are, they allowed all of that worship to be allowed. What am I trying?
No, I get it totally what you're saying, because no one, that's what I'm saying, nobody like heard anybody saying this stuff, and you didn't see them off to the side rolling their eyes or not believing in it. That's what I'm saying. Like I feel like it was 100% believed at that time, and we don't see so much of that later on that I remember in the Game of Thrones series itself. So maybe in those 100-year gap or something, what happened with this religion to the old gods and the new gods? Because we don't see it that much. So that's why I'm looking at a little bit deeper and thinking, well, what happened there? And they're building. They are weaving a story together. And maybe they will rewrite the ending of Game of Thrones. It's the original one at some point.
That's
with some
the
of
only
stuff they do.
reason I wanted George R.R. Martin to finish the books, was because I was like, hey, buddy, guy, you got to fix this.
Yeah.
They messed it up. I thought this series was incredible. Probably my, other than X-Files, top of all time favorite show. Game of Thrones. Love it. Love the books, everything.
Yep.
But when it got to that final series finale, when we got to the end there, I was like, wait, what? Wait, hold up. What's happening?
You just can't.
And I'm still mad about it today.
I mean, a lot of people are. Night of the Seven Kingdoms, a lot of people were mad at the slower pace. And I'm going to be the first one to say, if you don't want the slower pace, then go watch House of Dragons or Game of Thrones itself. I enjoyed it because it's more reflective. Some of the fans are going to miss the chaos, but like I said, House of Dragon, it's bringing it. But this one really let it breathe. And the action came. Like, we saw the jousting tournament. And even the jousting tournament showed you that politics can ripple through something as simple as a joust tournament in the middle. Like, that didn't have any bearings on anything big. But the politics were so strong in that. Dunk saw it, but he just fought along anyway. And, you know, that's crazy because, yeah, I love that part. And then the Battle of Seven was incredible.
Yeah, and I wonder if that existed before, or if they were like, we need something else here, so we're gonna throw in an extra thing that we didn't know about in Game of Thrones.
Yep.
We can throw in this extra thing where instead of trial by combat, we can trial by 7.
Which is wild.
There's this whole other thing, and then they can just act like, what? We haven't heard of that in 100 years. Nobody's done that. I don't remember it in House of Dragon or anything being mentioned.
No.
I can't think of a time, but maybe I missed something somewhere along the way, but they had to throw something in there to make it a little bit crazy. And then if you really think about that, you're talking about a jousting tournament, which essentially would have been a festival.
That's it.
Celebration. Should have been fun. You know, the king and his family are there, and all the, you know, bigger players of the houses, they're all there. And I mean, for the most part, it's supposed to be kind of like a good time, right? Like, it's supposed to be fun and lighthearted, and yeah, there's like jousting and people get hurt and sometimes people die, but like to have something like this happen where all of a sudden we're gonna have a trial by 7, we're gonna have this epic battle out on the jousting field, and then they're gonna potentially life-threatening to the prince, who is the heir to the throne. Like, insane how that turns around.
This is not a battle of, you get knocked down and it's over with. This was like, there were deaths. There were deaths that happened in the battle. And they're still sorting that out. You know, we're still sorting that out in the 6th episode. But I thought that was incredible, brutal. How did Dunk survive like 7 stabs and like, that was incredible.
You know, that brings us up to another good point, is that this series had some really funny moments, some real humor, and I love that. I love that they threw that in, probably more so than I've seen in the other series. But when the Maester is looking over Dunk after the battle, and he's like, he's gonna die. Yeah. And his friend there, what's his name, Lionel, he's like, oh, fuck off. He's like, he's a terrible Maester. He doesn't know what he's talking about anyway. You'll probably live. You'll probably be fine.
Yeah, I thought that was great.
Hilarious.
But yeah, and then we get that iconic moment there at the end with Dunk putting up the penny on the tree that his father, or I guess what he calls his father, Arlen, told him to do. Now, what this also shows me is, does he expect to come back to this tree at some point? Because that's what his father told him. You nail a penny to the tree. You take it back
when you come back.
Yeah, so that means he's going to make a full circle at some point and come all the way back around to that one spot, and that's the end of his journey. So I love that little aspect too. And let's be on the lookout in future seasons if that's what happens. Does he go back to this tree? Is that how the series is going to end? I love all these little subtle things that they put in there for us.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if you can relate back to what we were talking about, the old gods. Essentially, the old gods are the trees, right? The gods, woods, the trees. We know scientifically the trees talk to each other. They have an entire fungal communication system between roots, and they can send little impulses and messages through vibrations and chemicals released into the soil, all the things. So we know the trees talk to each other, okay? And they're all connected. And if you think back to the end of Game of Thrones, when we realized that the three-eyed raven could see through all of the past, through the trees, it was the trees witnessing history, was able to give him the information that he needed. That's what I was thinking of when you nailed the penny to the tree, was this tree is keeping record.
Yeah.
This tree witnessed everything that just happened, and that becomes information that supplies what moves on in the future and what informs future generations. And those that are spiritual enough to connect with the trees and the gods of the trees, they know what is happening and can sense it. And that's not that far off from our real world. I have often sat and thought, I wonder if the trees are actually the gods. They're witnessing everything we do for hundreds of years at a time. I mean, they live longer than us. So that's what I thought of when he nailed that penny to the tree. I was like, well, that tree is paying attention.
Incredible perspective. What's your final thoughts on Night of the Seven Kingdoms before we get out of here?
I would say the takeaway, if we can take anything from these series, this world that they've created for us, it's the idea that you don't have to have been born of noble blood, and you don't have to have been born with money to be somebody and to be influential or to make great contributions and great works into the world. And you also don't have to be well known for it. For those who are wishing they could all be influencers, I'm over here with a podcast and I don't really want to be an influencer. Yeah. I'm just like, I just want to be somebody and I want to help people. So the difference between what makes a Joffrey Baratheon, or in this series, Aryan type of cruel, probably insane leader that's going to destroy the world, or somebody who's going to make a difference in the world, helping people, being an honorable person, being an honest person, somebody you can rely on, and somebody that helps and takes care of those that are weaker and innocent. And that's the real difference of what makes a king worthy of being king.
Incredible. And let me put this out there for the freaks. I want to know, did the slower, more intimate storytelling, did it work for you? Or did you need the chaos, the blood, the fire, the dragons, the decapitations, the whatever else, the blood flowing in the streets? Or are you here for the human stuff? Let us know in the comments. That's Parallel Frequencies with Just Blane and Coco. We'll see you on the other side.